Doug Smith, can one have insulin resistance if thin and athletic? Ran 19 miles in the last 2 days. This is the channel for you. I have, for the past 30-something years, never had a BMI over 22. I am a marathon runner. Not so much anymore, but I've run, maybe a dozen marathons. I have no idea how many half marathons, and even an ultra. And it was, maybe a year or so after my first ultra, or after my ultra marathon, that I discovered my significant prediabetes. So I hope that answers your question. Marathoners get prediabetes all the time. It has more to do with aging than obesity. Obesity is very important. It's more reversible than aging, obviously. But Doug, yes, take a look at some of our videos, marathoners, and I've got several metabolic doppelgangers, guys that, again, big marathoners with significant prediabetes, even full-blown diabetes. Age 73. Yep. Read the book. A very interesting book on this. It's not specifically on marathons, and if you say, well, it's got to be about athletes, this wouldn't be the book. But a couple of books. One is Blood Sugar 101 by Jenny Ruhl, R-U-H-L, or The Diabetes Epidemic and You by Joseph Kraft. These are both classics in this space, and basically what they show us is by the time we're age 60, way over half of us have this problem. If you think you're going to outrun it, think again. And here's the thing, a couple of things I'll just share with you, stuff that I've shared with folks on this channel multiple times. One of the questions you have to ask about, again, marathon or ultra marathon, why would I have diabetes or prediabetes? Keep that fat level way down. And then here at age 63, I still have a size 32 waist. So it's not fat, it's aging. There's a couple of other things too. I was a 10.5-pound baby 63 years ago. We used to think that was a fat, healthy, happy baby. But what we have found over the past couple of decades is that babies that are that fat have a greatly increased probability of having prediabetes and diabetes as they age. The concept here is called epigenetics. We go into a lot of that science too. It's called the methylome, M-E-T-H-Y-L-O-M-E, the methylome. That, if you've got 6 billion base pairs in your genetic code, then you really need a good librarian to go back and figure out, okay, this is the gene for, one of the proteins we've talked about. This is the gene for ApoA1, which is the protein in HDL, or this is the gene for LDL. Actually, LDL uses one gene and it cuts it off, 148, etc. But that's a bunny trail. You need a great librarian to figure out how to find all of those genes, and that librarian depends on methyl. It methylates areas of the genetic code. So when I was in the womb and getting way too much blood glucose, resulting in me laying down way too much fat, my genetic librarian was methylating a lot of genes that are now coming back to roost, back into function, which, even though I was running marathons, it's very significant prediabetes, very significant diabetic, metabolic tendencies, difficulties metabolizing glucose. And again, this goes back to when I was in the womb. So very interesting stuff, and we continue to find more and more. Another issue about epigenetics, and a very interesting issue which we don't understand at all yet, and that is, if you take lab animals, mice, laboratory mice, and the father is obese at the time of fertilization of the egg, not only the offspring, but the grandchildren of that offspring have much higher risk for diabetes. So Doug, there's a lot more going on here than body fat. There's actually a lot more going on than age. There's epigenetics, which we just don't completely understand yet. So I'd like to talk with you a minute about the webinar. People don't understand what the webinar is. It's actually a great way to get some access to healthcare that you're just not going to get any other way. You actually get the lab tests yourself at a local lab, a Quest lab near you, for the inflammation panel and the OGTT and the insulin survey. These are things, inflammation and prediabetes, that your doctor just does not know about. And here's the thing. Harvard Health and many others have said, look, sudden death is not always so sudden. The Hollywood picture that it's a bolt out of the blue is not realistic. It's more like real lightning, preceded by clouds, wind, and rain. Stop that metabolic storm before the lightning strikes. And here's where that metabolic storm comes from. It's inflammation, and it has to do usually with prediabetes. So again, we actually get labs, we go over them in the webinar, and then you can start finding out how you can prevent that heart attack others said that you couldn't even predict. We can show you how. Thanks.